Hello friends. So today we'll discuss about the ongoing Israel-Iran war and is this actually the start of World War III? We'll be exploring one of the most important and unprecedented military confrontations in decades. That is the ongoing direct war between Israel and Iran. And could it potentially trigger the start of World War III? Well, experts have already warned about it. But let's take a deep dive and find out in today's video about the reality of this entire situation. So I'll try to explain this subject in a very simple and structured manner so you all can understand it very easily. So for years, Israel and Iran conflicts had been playing out in shadow wars, proxy battles, covert or secret operations, and diplomatic standoffs. But it is only in June 2025, it's for the first time that everything has changed. Israel has launched a large scale preemptive or preventive strike deep inside Iran, targeting its nuclear facilities, military command, and top military leadership. Iran, on the other hand, has responded hours later with waves of missiles and drones striking Israeli cities and military bases. So, this is now an open warfare between the two very powerful countries, and its repercussions have already reached far beyond the Middle East region. In this video, we'll discuss and cover all the important topics related to this war. That is, first, the historical build-up, what actually brought both these sides to this breaking and turning point. Next, we are going to discuss the Israel's June 2025 air campaign. We'll understand why and how Israel hit over 100 targets in Iran. Then we'll discuss Iranian retaliation, thousands of missiles and drones fired back by Iran on Israel. Then we are going to discuss the tactical and strategic implications of this war for nuclear weapons, regional alliances and global diplomacy. Next, we are going to discuss what lies next. So we'll discuss potential escalations, diplomatic paths, and global ripple effects due to this war. And finally, the conclusion and what we can actually derive, learn, and take away from this video analysis. So let's first discuss about the historical build-up from proxies to direct war now. So first, we have to understand that Israel and Iran have been engaged in war since 4 decades, mainly proxy warfare up until now. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, which led to establishing Iran as an Islamic Republic nation, Iran and Israel have engaged in a long-running proxy conflict. Iran had armed and empowered Hezbollah group in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Israel had launched airstrikes on Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. So this simmering or the growing confrontation had escalated, particularly after Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on Israel, which analysts attribute to have been committed by Iranian backing. Next is the direct strikes in 2024. So Iran made its first direct strike on Israeli soil in April 2024, launching Operation True Promise 1, a barrage of more than 300 missiles and drones from Iran and allied territories. Israel intercepted over 99% of these missiles and drones with US, UK, and Jordanian help. Israel assassinated Hamas and Hezbollah's leaders in October 2024. Israel responded with Operation True Promise 2nd, wherein 200 missiles were launched on October 1st, followed by Israel's Days of Repentance operation 4 weeks later. Next is the escalation context leading up to 2025. So these series of attacks and retaliation essentially laid groundwork for the June 2025 breakthrough attacks. Israel, flush and full of confidence after dismantling Hezbollah's missile threat in Lebanon in 2024, believed that it could confront Iran directly. Simultaneously, diplomatic efforts to revive the JCPOA deal. So let's understand what is this JCPOA deal. So JCPOA essentially stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action or the Iran Nuclear Deal. So this JCPOA is a landmark nuclear agreement reached in July 2015 between Iran, the P5+1 nations, including US, UK, France, Russia, China, and Germany, and also the European Union. So the purpose of this deal was to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons in exchange for A. Lifting economic sanctions on Iran, and B. Allowing international trade and oil exports, essentially benefiting Iranian economy. So this JCPOA deal and the efforts to revive this deal had failed, provoking Israel to attack Iran, and Israel also perceived Iran was in a weaker state due to its nuclear breaches and global sanctions applied on Iran by the world economies. Next, let's discuss Israel's Operation Rising Lion on June 12 to 13, 2025. First, let's cover the launch and scale. So on June 12 to 13, Israel initiated a large-scale air campaign called Operation Rising Lion. The first wave struck over 100 key targets: uranium enrichment facilities in Natanz, Fordo, Isfahan, the IRGC, which is the Iran's armed forces called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, bases near Kermanshah, and the air defense radars. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that this would continue for as many days as it takes. Next, let's discuss the covert or the secret intelligence operations. So, according to investigative sources, Mossad, which is Israel's secret intelligence service, had placed operatives inside Iran months prior back to this attack, supplying drones and essentially sabotaging Iran's air defense system. The operation disabled Iranian radar and centralized air defense, leaving the targets vulnerable. Next is the high-value targets eliminated. So among those which were killed were the IRGC Commander-in-Chief Hossein Salami, the Military Chief of Staff, Aerospace Commander, former advisor, and the top 2 military generals. Also, 6 top Iranian nuclear scientists were also killed in this attack. Next, let's understand the scope and the damage assessment. So Israel claims about 150 to 200 targets had hit, including nuclear infrastructure and military sites in Iran. The tactical goals were to suppress early air defense capacity, to cripple nuclear enrichment, to disable the command and control systems in Iran. The American Enterprise Institute, or the ISW, estimated this as the first wave of a potentially multi-week campaign launched by Israel. Next, let's discuss the Iran's retaliation, the Operation True Promise 3. So, approximately 18 hours later, Iran unleashed Operation True Promise 3, firing 150 to 200 ballistic missiles and over 100 drones at Israel. Their targets included military bases, airfields, and civilian areas, including Israel's capital, Tel Aviv, and other cities like Rishon LeZion. Next, let's cover the civilian and military impact. So, Israel reported 3 to 4 civilian fatalities, dozens injured. Iran, on the other hand, claimed hundreds of hits. Infrastructure damage has been reported in Ramat Gan, wherein residential buildings in Rishon LeZion and Tel Aviv, and the photos are already being circulated on social media, which shows the chaos and displacement all around these areas. Next is the air defense success. So Israel claims it intercepted most threats with its air defense systems, the Iron Dome, David Sling, and Patriot systems. The US had assisted basically Israel with the missile defense support system. So Iran also tracked incoming Israeli strikes with air defense radars previously sabotaged. However, some Iranian launches passed through gaps and caused damage in Israel. Next, let's discuss the strategic message. So this marks the first time that Iran has fired hundreds of ballistic missiles directly at Israel in an open warfare. Iran expanded its threat to include US, UK, and French military assets in the region, warning that their involvement would bring retaliations. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz responded back and warned Iran, saying Tehran will burn if the strikes continue. Next, let's discuss the tactical and strategic implications. So first is the nuclear program setback versus the bounce back. So Israel heavily damaged key Iranian nuclear sites at Natanz, Isfahan, and possibly Fordo, but experts caution that some remains, the underground facilities and hidden machines, or the nuclear centrifuges, which is used for nuclear enrichment, which is basically a device which separates uranium-235 from the 238, they still remain. The Washington Post noted that the real question is whether this will drive Iran underground, even accelerating their secret nuclear research. Next is the leadership decapitation and bounce back. So killing Iran's IRGC commanders and nuclear scientists is indeed a very heavy blow to Iran, but not necessarily crippling. Quick replacements have already appeared. Iran may be weak in short term, but history shows that the leadership losses can in turn solidify internal unity and even accelerate such secret developments. Next is the regional geopolitics and the oil markets. So Gulf airspaces were closed following the Israel's attack. Oil prices had spiked over 7%. But experts believe the overall damage won't last very long, because the global supply chains will adapt shortly by finding new routes or alternatives. Gulf states quietly backed Israel, or at least stayed neutral, despite fearing a broader flare-up and retaliation by Iran. Russia remains an Iranian ally diplomatically, but it is unlikely to militarily intervene. Next is the US role and diplomatic fallout. So, US President Donald Trump has publicly praised Israeli action and warned Iran to immediately stop and curtail its nuclear program. US military forces played a defensive role, essentially helping Israel in intercepting missiles, but is proceeding with caution in avoiding direct strikes with Iran. The JCPOA based talks scheduled for June 15 in Oman were put on hold, with Iran calling them off as meaningless. Next is the regional war risks. So, proxy fronts in Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen remain unstable. Hezbollah, although it has been weakened, may rearm and reorganize. Iranian backed Houthi attacks on the Israel in Yemen briefly supplemented and added on to the Iranian strikes. Analysts have warned the conflict could expand, drawing even US, European, or Gulf military involvement, potentially even leading to World War III. Now, what's next? First is the Israel's campaign continuation. So, Israel says the campaign may last for weeks, covering more strikes if Iran does not relent or back down. Now, the question is, can they find and destroy hidden nuclear infrastructure, or will they risk escalating further? This question remains to be answered, and we'll only know this with time. Next is the Iran's multi-phase response. So Iran warns of further military or drone launches and proxy use teleguided through Hezbollah, militias established in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Now, whether Iran escalates or seeks to de-escalate will depend on its internal pressure, economic strain, and the unity among its fellow groups. Next is the diplomatic front lines. So prospects for reviving nuclear diplomacy have already weakened now. Iran has withdrawn from the talks, and with no US intermediator willing to support Israel-style strikes, the situation may grind into a long impasse or even a deadlock. Speaking of the international pressure, so UN, which is the United Nations, Pope, who is the leader of the Catholic Church, and Al-Azhar, which is the Sunni Islam's highest religious authority, have urged restraint and could lead to diplomacy and help restore peace in the region again. Next is the long-term impact. So the strikes have shattered the distinction between shadow wars and an outright military confrontation. Israel's open attack on Iran's nuclear infrastructure has set a precedent or an example already. Regional arms races may even accelerate. So Turkey, Saudi Arabia may drive towards nuclear deterrence. That is, these countries might now try to develop or acquire nuclear weapons to defend themselves and protect their sovereignty. Next is the civilian toll and global watch. So on both the sides, civilian casualties, that is children in Tehran, families in Tel Aviv, have already triggered feelings of grief, solidarity and fear. Now the longer this goes on, unfortunately, the more civilian lives will be lost. Next is the global markets, air travel and geopolitical alignments are all at stake. Now this isn't just a Middle Eastern crisis. It's a potential flash for wider crisis or maybe even World War III as we have discussed. So coming to the conclusion, friends, we are now witnessing a momentous turning point, a post-1979 regional structure collapsing into an open warfare. Israel's sweeping operation Rising Lion, backed by secret Mossad intelligence, has hit high-value nuclear and military targets inside Iran. Iran's massive response, Operation True Promise 3, marks the first time Tehran has resorted to direct multi-wave missiles and drone strikes at Israel, backed by proxy activity. The result is a dangerous escalation. Nuclear diplomacy has been suspended, regional airspaces have been closed, oil prices are spiking, and a very real chance that this spreads beyond today's situation. So, as we continue to follow this conflict, we need to watch out for the following aspects of this war. That is, the Israel's next move. Will they keep striking deeper or they shift to consolidation? Then Iran's follow-up. Is there another wave of attack planned or a pullback from here? Then the proxy flare-ups, so Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen. Weapons could fire from these groups and cause further tensions in the region. And what about diplomacy? So can the international community restore a dialogue before destruction multiplies? So today we are standing at a dangerous crossroads. One reckless move, miscommunication or miscalculation could drag in the US, Europe, the Gulf and essentially reshape the entire global order. So if you found this analysis useful, hit like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. What do you think comes next? And as always, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay curious.